For this assignment, we were told to watch Fire in the Blood. This documentary follows the HIV or AIDS epidemic to Africa and other poor countries of the global south. It outlines the hardships, activism, and suffering brought on by the sickness. But what does this have to do with the globalization class? Okay, so to understand how a documentary like Fire in the Blood relates to a globalization class, let's first take a step back and do some review. We know that globalization is a big word that refers to how the world is integrating, meaning how the actions on this side of the world affect that side of the world. A big part of globalization is trade. With advancements in transportation and the internet, trade happens all over the world all the time now. World trade quickly became so big that it was recognized that there needed to be some kind of global agreement or force for regulation and promotion. Thus, the World Trade Organization was created in 1995. Okay, so now we have the World Trade Organization. And not only did they have to regulate physical commodities, but they also had to figure out how to handle intellectual property. This led to the creation of the TRIPS Agreement. The whole point of the TRIPS Agreement was to protect and compensate the creators and owners of things that were not necessarily physical or that could be copied. In the TRIPS Agreement, they covered a little thing called patents. Now, if you patent something, that means that you, the inventor or owner, have exclusive rights to this thing. And that means that you can choose who is using, making, or buying this thing. And when the WTO outlined patent laws, they said that it's enforceable for at least 20 years. Hold tight, it's going to come around in a second. Okay, so here's where it starts to come together. Patents can and are applied to pharmaceuticals. This has helped turn the pharmaceutical industry into a money-making business. Now, AIDS is treatable. There's medicines that manage the sickness, allowing people to live normal, healthy lives. But these medicines are patented, and the owners of the patents don't want to lose profit by selling for cheaper or allowing generic meds to be made or imported. So people in poor countries like Africa who can't afford the steep prices of AIDS medicine are suffering and dying. Thus we have the documentary Fire in the Blood. Okay, now that we know how this relates to that, let's take a minute to talk about pharmaceutical patents that allow that to happen. So when it comes to pharmaceutical patents and the monopolies created by them, drug companies argue that these are necessary to create the profit-making incentives that generate new life-saving pharmaceutical discoveries. And that's true. Having these money incentives has really motivated and generated a lot of breakthroughs in the pharmaceutical industry. The flip side to that, though, is that when it's all about money incentives, then these patent holders only want to make medicines for rich countries, or if they do make medicines that are useful in poor countries, they don't want to lower the price so that the poorer countries can afford them. We're also going to see in the competition that this causes secrecy between people because they don't want to share the incentives that come from making something. So, is there a solution that allows for scientific innovation while also allowing accessible prices for poor countries and people? I know in the US, the government currently pays the high market prices for drugs in their Medicare and Medicaid programs. I think that if a national health coverage was created, that it would give the government the power to negotiate the prices of these medications, and that this would keep the medication costs low, which would give access to poorer countries and poor people. And then the money that was saved by paying cheaper prices for the medication could in turn be invested as incentives to go towards scientific and pharmaceutical innovations. But I think that true change will only come if the world and the people in it become less money-oriented. Hi there. So for this presentation, I had to record my video speaking points at different times. I know that the change in lighting and outfits can be a little distracting, and there's a lot of information covered. So to make sure that the whole idea was cohesive, I just wanted to add this little summary slide.